Welcome back to another Tranquil Waters devlog. So in one of my previous videos I used the built-in Unity's terrain system to create the landscape for my project, and this worked until I stumbled upon one problem, then another, and then I couldn't control this, and I had issues with this, and it just very quickly became a huge mess. So I thought to myself, what better way to remove this problem than to just reinvent the wheel and program my own landscape system from scratch inside of Unity. Now, if you're new to the channel, first of all, hello, I am an indie soul game developer currently working on Tranquil Waters, a casual exploring game set in the 17th century. Story is not finished, don't ask about the story, I have no clue either. So without further ado, let's get started. So one main thing that really bothered me in the previous terrain system was that I could not achieve the low poly effect that I wanted, where every triangle had its own color without any kind of blending between the triangles. This is actually impossible to do with the terrain system, and the reason why is because you cannot actually get the vertices and triangles that the terrain system creates inside of C#. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know, the way you can get the triangle to only have a single color is to ensure that the three vertices that make up the triangle have a single color. And since I cannot access the goddamn vertices from C# or even a shader, I cannot achieve the effect I want. This was actually my tipping point where I was like, yep, I am so rewriting this terrain system from scratch, no matter how bad it gets. So the first thing that we need is a height map. A height map is basically just a grayscale image that shows us the height from 0 to 1. So this is an example of a height map, so is this, and so on. Now I have already coded a function that will convert the height map to a mesh inside of Unity, and I just want to quickly gloss over it since I don't want to bore you that much with the logic. As you can see, I have a nested for loop that loops over every single pixel for the height map, and then I multiply the value by a height scale variable, since like I mentioned before, we get the value from 0 to 1, and that's really small in Unity units. So the height scale allows us to control the height basically. Then after getting all of the vertices, we can set the triangle information, which basically tells the GPU how the vertices are connected, and that's mainly everything we need to do to create the mesh. Another quick thing I implemented was my own DIY LOD system. LOD, I have no way how you pronounce it, but it basically stands for level of detail. Basically, we want the landscape that is very far away to have as little detail as possible, or as little vertices, for optimization's sake. So as you can see, I have this slider that I can control, and this updates the mesh with the correct vertex count. Alright, so that is the base for our terrain system down. Before we continue with the video, I think we have come to the part where I can say, if you like the video so far and want to see more future content like this, please consider subscribing and potentially also liking the video, because it does help me. Alright, let's continue with the video. So now we can get into coloring the vertices, finally. So now that we actually have access to our vertices, we can simply set the color for each of the vertices. I went ahead and tested out my principles and decided to set a random color for every new triangle. Since a triangle is made up of 3 vertices, I can just set a new random color if the vert index mod 3 is set to 0. I'm passing that to our mesh renderer, and whoa, that is not what I wanted to do. Alright, so the colors are still blending, and after some thinking I realized that yes, of course that they will blend, and that is because the triangles actually share vertices with each other. Alright, so let's say that we are creating our vertices. something like this. I know that I am very bad at drawing. Please don't judge me. I'm also doing this on my phone because I don't even have a tablet, but whatever. So we're creating our triangles, blah blah blah. All right, that's gonna be enough for now anyways. So let's say that we want to color this triangle over here a red color. Why not? So that means we're gonna color this vertex red, this one and this one red, right? And that's actually gonna turn this triangle red. But we have a problem. Let's say I want my next triangle to be purple or whatever. I'm gonna go to this vertex and then this vertex and also this one and color them purple, which, yeah, it's gonna turn this triangle purple. But now these two, oh crap, wrong one, shit. These two are no longer be red because I have just overwritten them, and that's a problem, and that's gonna continue with the next triangle. So if I want to make it yellow, this one, I'm gonna color this one yellow, and this one yellow, which sure, it's gonna make this triangle yellow, but we have overridden these two vertices. Sorry, these two again. So now we messed up this triangle, and that pattern is just gonna continue for the next one, the next one, and so on. So we're basically, true, we are setting a different color every 3 vertex, but we are overriding the previous ones constantly. So that's basically what's happening and why we are getting the blending thing to not work as expected. So what is the solution for this then? Well, we just duplicate the vertices. No, I am serious. On every position we will have 2 vertices instead of 1. That way the triangles will not share the same vertices and we're not gonna get the colors blending. Now, if you're already worrying about the optimization, it's not that big of a deal, since remember, most of our islands will have barely any vertices anyways because of the level of detail that we implemented. It's only the island the player is currently on which is gonna have the most vertices. Now, to actually remove the shared vertices, I had to pretty much kind of rewrite the mesh generation code. I mean, not completely, but a lot of the stuff, and it took a lot of tries and fails. So I realized that I needed to make my problem smaller. So I wanted to just make a single quad with the duplicate vertices, manually of course, and it was pretty simple. Now that I know what I need to do manually, I just need to add a few for loops so I can have a size variable, and as you can see, it worked beautifully, and we even have the effect we want now. Wow, this actually took longer than expected. I even got the height map to work again, but you can see that if I increase the size past a certain threshold, we get a very weird effect on our landscape. That is because by default, Unity sets a limit on the amount of vertices that a mesh can have. By default, it's 65,535 vertices. But now, since we have duplicated the amount of vertices, we have very quickly crossed that threshold. But there is a way. We can actually override the index buffer limit from 16 bits to a 32-bit, which makes our mesh support up to 4 billion vertices. I mean, I can see the reason why Unity set the default to 16-bit. Very rarely are you gonna cross those 65,000, but I definitely need it. Now, after setting our vertex colors based on the height from 0 to 1, see that we get this effect on our landscape. Then passing those values to my shader graph through the vertex color channel, I can finally ensure the low poly effect I so wanted so long. What a journey. And this is the final effect. I joined the two codes I worked on together, so now I also get the DIY level of detail thing I had previously, and I'm very happy with the results. One last thing that I kind of started working on was adding a bit of randomness to the average height, so it's not really so smoothly blending between the height values. Not sure how I feel about it so far. It's definitely something that can use a lot of improvements, but I will leave that for another video in the future. So this was all I wanted to show you guys for today. Thank you all so much for sticking by for this long. And if you already made it so far, that means that you probably enjoyed the video. So I guess I can ask you to subscribe again. And also potentially like the video. If you have any kind of feedback or suggestions, please leave them down in the comments and I will try to answer as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you in the next one.